Hello, my work is about Stony the Road, a book by Henry Louis Gates Jr. This book is about the history of racism against Black people in the United States of America. The main topics are the Reconstruction, a time period following the American Civil War and the freeing of the slaves, in which Black people were supposed to have gained the same rights white people had, but that unfortunately didn't happen. The book also goes in depth about white supremacy and the ways in which white supremacists went about putting down the Black race, be it through literature, science, or entertainment, all of which gained their own new branches, specifically created and dedicated to that purpose, the purpose of putting Black people down, of putting the Black race down, as you can see here. In the same order I said, literature, science, and entertainment, as the last one is a movie poster. Something else that is a recurring topic of the book is Jim Crow. Jim Crow, aside from being a caricature of a Black person, as we see in the middle here, were also the segregation laws, which made it so Black people didn't have the rights to use the same restrooms, waiting rooms, train carriages as white people. The list goes on, schools, etc. And Jim Crow laws also took away the political and economic gains made by Black people during the Reconstruction period. That also happened. The last major recurring topic of this book are the concepts of the Old Negro and the New Negro. The Old Negro being this decrepit, sometimes pictured as a almost gentle, passive figure, a fictional figure of a Black person who's simply satisfied with the status quo. They just take the white dominated world as it is instead of fighting to change it. Even if they're unhappy, even if they're not satisfied with their lives, they'll simply take it. As opposed to that, the new Negro, as we see in these pictures here, is every bit as sophisticated and educated as a white person. They're outspoken about the rights and they fight for them. I'd like to talk about the part I find most fascinating about this whole book, which is scientific racism and racial science. They are branches of science created by white supremacists with the purpose of finding evidence and proof that the Black race is inferior to the white race, and finding out why people are Black in the first place, or as they put it, finding out what causes Blackness. I find this very fascinating because as a child, ever since I was a child, and especially as a former science student, I've always admired scientists, I've always looked up to them, I've always seen them as some of the smartest, most intelligent people on earth. And it's such a big contrast with this. What these people were doing was not science. They were taking anything they could find and twisting it in order to fit their narrative. This image especially, I don't think I need to explain. But scientific racism and racial science were the main topics of chapter 2. And it was by far the fastest I've read in this book because, God, it was interesting seeing just a whole community of people taking what they saw as facts when what I see nowadays, what I assume most people see nowadays is just wrong. I don't know why. It just the contrast between what I saw scientists as my whole life to what these people are doing is just, it's very fascinating. I don't know how. I'd like to point out a few things I don't like about this book. Firstly, the structure. It doesn't follow chronological order. Instead, Gates chose to discuss topic by topic, which I can understand since now I know that Gates likes giving a lot of detail about everything, every issue, every problem, every person. He gives a lot of detail, and I can understand wanting to have all of that detail packed together instead of scattered around, but it made it a lot harder to understand the bigger picture. Some events I don't know when they happened or in which order. So yeah, that's a problem I had. Something else I have a problem with is the fact that it seems like Gates assumes that the reader has some sort of knowledge about American history because he doesn't explain things like what the Civil War was. Even Reconstruction, we only know what it was because from context clues. It's never directly addressed nor explained. So yeah, those were my complaints about the book. As for my final thoughts about this book, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I honestly only chose it because I saw Jim Crow on the title. I didn't know what Jim Crow was. I just heard the name before. I didn't know it pertained to segregation laws. I didn't know about the caricature. I simply chose the book based off its title. And I'm not even that interested in topics like this. But I actually really liked reading Stony the Road, despite the confusion that it was at times. That being said, whether or not I recommend it uh, for you to read, that really depends on how much you know about the topic and about American history. I think Stony the Road is a really good book as a complementary read to the topic. If you've informed yourself, if you've done research, I think it could be a really good read. But as I said before, it can be confusing at times due to the structure, due to the lack of explanation of some events. But overall, it's a good read. Just make sure you do some sort of research before you read it. That's that's all I have. Enjoy reading it if you do.